thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me Medialab. And to talk about food, which is one of the things that I seem to not get away from in my life. Somehow, I'm not a chef, I'm not seeking out food, rather it kind of seeks out me, because for me it's a medium that allows me to express, I suppose, my curiosity or something. It allows me to follow my curiosity. And so I would like to just share some of the projects that I've done over the past 10 years with you. And the subject will be how food can function as a research tool. So how it allows me to investigate things. So if I would use a cheesy metaphor, it would be that I'm not a chef, I'm more like a microscopist or optometrist that kind of sharpens this lens, and this lens would be food. And looking through the lens, I'm trying to see something. I'm trying to understand reality, I'm trying to understand humanity, I'm trying to understand how we design things, and often somehow this happens through food. Not always, but often. So funnily enough, my journey basically in this kind of designing or in this kind of artistic research, it starts in Spain, and it starts with a designer from your country, Martí Guixé, who is known as one of the first important food designers, I think, and also working for big brands like Kemper and all these things. But when I was working as a cultural producer in a place in Utrecht, Casco, we invited 4 artists to do an opening event. Nothing else, just the opening. And no exhibition after, just the opening. So we invited 4 people, and one of them was Martí Guixé, and he said, okay, I have an idea, I want to design a fog of gin and tonic. A party in which we put the whole space in a mist or fine fog of gin and tonic. And so we did that, we produced it. And I have only one image with me today. But for me it really was an eye-opener, because somehow he managed to address all the questions that we wanted to address in this project, which was about what is an opening for a cultural event. And somehow gin and tonic, especially in London, but I think maybe also here in Spain, is connected to these cultural openings where you have gin and tonic and you'll be very sophisticated. And so we found this agricultural machine, and he put the gin in and he put the tonic in, and it made this very fine mist. It was so foggy in the space that you could hardly see each other. But of course it was also something visual, so you were looking at it and you were breathing the gin and tonic. It was a very intense experience. But of course also in a way he kind of abstracted the idea of food, or a drink in this case. And this was what opened my eyes, that you can actually abstract food to a level where it starts to communicate on all kinds of levels, not just about food, not just about nutrition or energy, but on all sorts of levels. And that it becomes a medium in itself, much like paint or sculpture or any kind of medium. Food can also be that medium. So when I moved to another place a year later called Mediamatic in Amsterdam, the first thing I wanted to do was to do a real big project with Martí Guixé, and I invited him. And this project was called Food Facility. And basically what we asked him was to create a contemporary dining experience or something like this. And his answer to this question was a restaurant where we don't have a kitchen, we don't cook anything ourselves, but the food is from takeout restaurants in the area. So the only thing we were was basically a facility. We were only a set of tables and we had a bar. And then the guys with the scooters came and they brought the food from everywhere in town. So the nice thing, of course, was that you could... basically, what happened was, so the people would come with their food, they would go to a food DJ, the food DJ would unwrap it, so you get these plastic bags, they would take the food out, present it nicely on a plate, and they would bring it to a table. And people would just have a table. But we didn't have, but of course we didn't take any responsibility for the food because we didn't cook it. And you got these warning signs, like, I'm sorry, we didn't know if it was going to take 45 minutes or 20 minutes or maybe more than an hour for the food to arrive. So if I would be dining with you or with you, you would order Chinese food, I would order Moroccan, you would order some Dutch food from different restaurants, and you would already be finished with your meal and I would still be waiting. So it created these kind of strange situations, but also nice ones, because of course when you get all these different foods on the table, you get this kind of multicultural explosion of different food cultures. And so it became a crazy fusion situation.
DJs mix the foods, the different foods.
Well, not our food DJ. He just kind of, we just called it like that, and he just put it on a plate. He didn't mix it. He was just the guy in the middle, and they just went to him. It was it was just a nice name, basically. And we also had a table where the leftovers would go, etc. But what was actually really going on was that this restaurant was not so much about the food, it was about the new possibilities that it created, and it was really about Google. It was how Google is just this list of information that you can have everything. Let's say if I look up Chinese food on Google, or I look up Chinese acrobatics, it doesn't matter. I serve the world. And this knowledge, it starts to create this desire in me. And what we were starting to understand is that because of internet, our desires were changing. Because we knew everything was there, but still we couldn't have it. We still had to make a choice. Let's go to a French restaurant, or let's go to an Italian restaurant. And this was not compatible anymore with the information space that was surrounding us. So actually we created this restaurant that became compatible, where we were doing the same as Google. We just gave all the information about the takeout restaurants, but we didn't take any responsibility, just like Google. They give you all the information how to create a bomb, or how to do whatever you want, make poison, but they say, hey, it's just information, I'm not responsible. So we were also trying to, materialize this new information age into a restaurant setting. So again, it wasn't really about food, but it was about contemporary society and how things was changing, how information was changing also our desires and what we wanted from life. Another project. So it's not about food, it was about information. A lot of the things that we did in Platform 21, where I worked for a few years as a curator as well, I'm basically now more working as an artist, but I was working as a curator mostly in the beginning of my career. It was opening up design processes. So we wanted to invite people before the final product into the making of things. We were doing this in 2007, 2008, and it was necessary at the time because design was still considered to be something that you present on a white piece of wood like that, a beautiful object, almost like a magical thing appearing like, out of nothing. And somehow it wasn't satisfying because I'm the son of an artist, and the best thing for me was always to go to the studio and to see him make something. And then when you go to the final exhibition, it's rather boring, it's just this thing, but all the life that went into it, and there's a value there that we wanted to share. So this basically, it is a summary of some of the projects that we did. We did this repair manifesto. Some of you know it, I know that you know, and we did a few years ago also at Matadero, we did some workshops about this repair. We also did a project called Hacking IKEA, actually started with that, which was about customizing going to IKEA, buying something and then customizing it to your own situation. You might know it, it's this IKEA hackers, it's quite a big culture online these days. And at some point we also started to think about cooking as a way to infuse the system with your personality. So you have these ingredients, and because you are working with them, you start to put your personality on these things. And putting your personality on things is important because that creates an intimacy, that creates some sort of relationship. And at some point we even started to call it new materialism, because of course you have this long tradition of not caring about the material. We don't care about the material. We're very immaterial people. But what also happened because of this is that we just start throwing things away. We don't value them at all. So we try to kind of turn things around and say, no, value, look what it's giving to you. And one project that I would like to talk about, which is this cooking and constructing, is when there was this discussion in 2008 a lot about food or fuel. You had this big discussion. Should we plant our fields with fuel crops, and then we make biofuels, and it's better for the environment, but at the same time people will go hungry. So, for instance, prices were going really up in 2008, and this discussion became, you maybe remember like these tortilla wars in Mexico, and all these situations where people went to the streets, and we could feel, I think it's just before the crisis, we could feel that things were changing. And so we did a project about that at Platform 21. Different things. We did it in a very friendly way. We made these very nice pastel-colored kitchens where people could turn things that were edible into unedible things. So you would take a potato and you would turn it into Play-Doh, or you would turn it into potato plastics. So you would take beetroots and you would turn it into nice Pantone color systems. Or you would take a lemon and you turn it into a battery. I mean, all these things that now on the internet you will find a lot of instructions how to do that, and people love it, and it's great. But for us, it was a way to have this discussion. Should we have food or fuel? And of course, we didn't answer it. It was just to create a debate and to make people aware. Or, something like this. This kind of guys that use spaghetti to build bridges and see how strong they are. Anything that was about turning things that we can eat into things that we don't eat was part of this project somehow. And what it brought very much to our attention is that at the moment, basically our kitchen is our final kind of workstation. The only lab that we have in the house is the kitchen, because we don't have our sheds anymore, especially not in the Netherlands, I don't know, maybe in Spain it's different, and especially in the countryside, people might still be doing these kind of things, but also less and less, I'm sure. So, but one thing we did realize is that every kitchen is a workspace. And every day, in many, many houses, people are actually working with ingredients, with tools, making chemistry, basically. And that from this very basic knowledge that is still part of us, maybe we can expand back to fields of knowledge that are of value to us. And although it looked very friendly, and we were working with kids, and we were working with neighbors, and we were working, in pastel colors, and it was a wonderful kind of fashionable place to go. Actually, the debate we were having and the discussions we were having were very serious. So we always try to kind of level this out. And if we don't win this battle, basically the battle is still going on. If we don't win this battle, then in a few years, Nestlé will decide for us, what we have to eat. Coca-Cola will decide for us what we can drink, because we don't know anymore how to make our own stuff. And of course, that makes it very profitable for them to have this kind of ignorance kind of machine going on, right? If we don't fight it, nobody will, because then we'll just turn into good customers. Just a small interlude, because this is a project that goes back in time again, which was the Otaku barbecue, but it's something that always stuck in my mind. I invited these guys from Romania, Stefan Tiron and Linda Barkas, and Bogdan Marcu. They were just crazy Romanian, these otaku kids that were working with computer games and all kinds of things. But they brought one idea, which was a soya barbecue. They came from Romania, from Bucharest, and they brought all these soya products. They are here. And if you go to any Romanian shop, I don't know if it's today, but like up until like 7, 8 years ago, you will find so many dried soya products. And they are actually the remnants of Ceausescu's policies to send everything that was fresh, everything that could make him some foreign currency, to other countries, while making a huge marketing strategy for the domestic market to sell soya as the best food you can imagine. So, if you stop thinking, we might be eating this kind of crappy, dried soya food like the Romanians have been doing for all those years. So it's, this is a real kind of thing, what happens if you take your eye off the ball. So in 2009, I decided to become an artist, and a little earlier, I came to this website, Instructables, you might know it. It's this sharing website. It's wonderful. Millions of people share whatever you want to know about life on there. How to make, atomic mushroom pasta, how to do your first kiss, how to make a perfect cappuccino, anything you can imagine. Silly things, a lot of silly things, like always on the internet, a lot of silly things, but also very, very good things. And I thought now, what would happen if you would actually use that information instead of just consume it? Because of course, one of the things that's happening with information on the internet these days is that we are producing it all the time, but you start to wonder who is actually doing this kind of thing. For who am I producing this information? Now I think it's changing. But 5 years ago, I had a strong feeling that people still had to kind of get used to using the information. I think now maybe people are doing it more and more, and I see this kind of massive movement starting. But anyway, it was about digesting that information on the web and using it and seeing how far you can take it. What's the value of this information on the internet? And so this website, Instructables, for those who don't know it, for instance, you would find this lamp and how to make it. Now this lamp is it uses a lot of IKEA lamps, and it makes a big one. And you can make spherical lamps, very, very, very big ones. I think this guy made one with 128 lamps, and it's huge, But he also put the instructions on how to do that, and the costs, and all the technological things that you need to do. He put it on that website. So it's very easy to do. He even put, let's say, how do you call that? The designs, like the prints where you have to put the holes. You can print, let's say, papers, you put it on the lamp, and you just have to draw exactly where, and you just do it yourself. But the nice thing about Instructables is that people will comment on that or ask questions. So people would say, yeah, I tried to make your lamp and I like it, but if you do this and this and this, it's a little bit better. So that opens up a huge potential, of course, for making things better through, this communication with peers. But it also has lots of recipes, going back to the food and the restaurant. So what we thought is, okay, so what if I would want to open a restaurant and I would just take my recipes from this website? I wouldn't want to be this big author chef. No, I would be very modest, and I just take the nice flan that this little boy made in Madrid. Or I will take the spaghetti from this guy in Italy that his mother always used to make. Or maybe the mother put it on the website. I just take this and I start to prepare it with the instructions that they give me on the internet. Then I will serve this, and then, of course, you get the feedback. And then with the feedback, you start to make the same pasta, but the feedback goes into it. And then again, and again, and again. So, of course, in the philosophy of Instructables, we make an Instructable on how to make such a restaurant. Very elaborate, what to do with, how to create parties, to create the furniture, how to create parties to make the lamps. This is, let's say, this is just a rendering in a computer, but this was exactly how it looked. So these were made with like plastic big soya bean things, and we had these kind of drawing computers because on the internet you always have a lot of these kind of funny things. And but what I also liked a lot is that this restaurant didn't have a chef in the kitchen that was deciding the food. It had all those people on posters, and they were the chefs. So the chefs were a guy called Fu, that's how he called himself, from Minnesota in America, who had a nice pumpkin soup. Very simple, but we decided it's a good basis to start, and then we will see how far that soup will take us. And so we had many, many different versions of this, many kind of pop-up situations where we created the Instructables restaurant. Like this is one. We made a big table, made an instruction on how to put many tables together and paint it white so it always looks great, all these kind of things. And then it became this kind of internet thing, and people started to write about it as if it was already a commercial format. Of course, that happens on the internet as well, which was nice because a lot of people looked at it. And then there was a lot of publicity. And we also started to do competitions because the competition is basically the logic of the web, right? This is how they try to pull you into their projects these days. So we have a competition for the best this or that, and then you can join. I mean, to be honest, I hate those competitions nowadays because everything is a competition. I have twins, they're always competing, and I think it's a sign of these times. I mean, we should find strategies to do something else and get rid of all this competition. But at that moment, in 2009, I thought it was interesting that it was just a logical way of getting people into your thing. So we made this little food chart, and we had this cheesecake competition where we just made various recipes, and then people would eat it, and then they could immediately give feedback, and we had a computer there, and we give the feedback to the people on Instructables. Many of those people never knew we were making their recipes. All of a sudden, they got like 20 comments on their cheesecake, because we never asked them, just creative comments, you can use it, and then we would say, oh, here. We were, of course, not making money with it, but if you could say that every time you sell a cheesecake or a pizza or whatever from their recipe, you would send them 10 or 20 cents, just because they took the effort to put their recipe online. And then you get a whole different discussion, because recipes actually don't have copyright for good reason, because they are, it's too complicated. But anyway, so we also organized a pizza contest together with Instructables, and we had a pizza Instructable restaurant. And we had the comments on the pizzas, and we improved them, and so we kind of played that whole game. And of course, again, it's not really about the food. It is about the logic of how you can, in an open source way, improve things. Because we didn't just do the food, everything in the restaurant, like everything, I have to go back, just everything in the restaurant was taken from it. So also the lamps, also the chairs, everything. So also the chairs, I mean, they were pretty uncomfortable, I have to be honest. So people would say, this is a very uncomfortable chair. And then I could say, well, why don't you improve it? And then you can put your comment online, and we have a better chair. And this happened, actually. The chair was improved like 3 times or something. And we made a new one, and etc. So, yeah, we make this kind of analog comment thing, so people can be in the restaurant, just write it down, and then we would put it online for them sometimes. So just to expand on that idea of improving things, I was thinking, like, could we make this creamy pumpkin soup of this kid somewhere in Minnesota? Can we make it a 3 Michelin star soup? Does open source have the potential to become the highest quality? Well, I can already tell you no. It's quite difficult. But I mean, still in potential, in theory, if a 3 Michelin star would get on Instructables and actually tell you how to do it, then still there's experience. Still, cooking is it's alchemy in a way. It's not just chemistry. So, but there is the potential. And so what I did is, for 23 days in a row, I made the same soup in a Waag Society in Amsterdam. I just stood on a little table and I was giving my soup to customers. They were giving me feedback. The next day, with the feedback, I would make the same soup, just with the comments that I thought were feasible. Not all the comments, because, that doesn't go anywhere. But the comments that I thought, okay, I'll try this one. A little bit more of this, maybe you should add something like that. And the next day I did it again. For more than 3 weeks, every day, I did it. And the soup became incredibly good. Like, already on the 5th day, it was so good. It was amazing. People were like, what the fuck? And they were putting this soup in freezers and having it and celebrating this soup. And then on the 6th day, I followed some more instructions, and it went down. And then the 7th day it went up again, and so, it kind of stayed like this because, I'm not a chef. So, but there was some sort of improvement. It was interesting, and of course it was a social thing. So here's that's day 8. I also had a... So, I don't know, I can talk about this a little bit, because it's another food project. Well, actually, it's called Gum Station. And I did it during the Design Mai in Berlin, I guess in 2009. And what I did is I just sat, when I still had long hair and no beard, different. I just sat at the entrance of this Design Mai, and I went to a gas station in the area because I was supposed to do a project, but I didn't come up with anything. So in the last minute, I decided I go to the gas station, I get all the gum they have, Hubba Bubba, all these kind of things, bazooka, whatever. And I go sit at the entrance and I give it to people. I give them gum and I will say something like, okay, I'm giving you this gum, you can have the taste, but you cannot have the carrier because the carrier is mine. So when you come back and you have eaten it and it's not so nice anymore, you give it back to me. So I start to collect all these gum from all these sweet girls that really like to have gum, and it was a wonderful experience, I have to say. And more gum, and I had hundreds of gums. And of course it was interesting because gum actually has a lot of information. It has your teeth, but it also has a lot of DNA. And so I was asking them for their email, and I said, give me your email because I want to write you a love letter later on after this event, because we have become so intimate, because you are giving me all your personal information. Because actually, if you give a piece of gum to somebody, you are giving a lot. So that was that project. So since 2010, and this is one of the things that is with me now, this is my big project at the moment. It's called the Incredible Shrinking Man, and I'm trying to find out if it's possible to make people smaller. We are getting very tall. I'm almost 2 meters now, and my children are growing like crazy as well, although I'm trying to stop them. And I thought, well, it would be much better for the planet and for reasons of sustainability, but also for reasons of health, as we can find out, to just become smaller. Why not? Why do we think it's so cool and so brilliant that we're always getting taller? We are kind of pushing the limits of what our framework can take. I can feel it in my back that, I'm becoming too tall. The body was not meant to be this tall, so something's going on. And the something that is going on is, of course, I don't know, genetics, environmental issues, hygiene, medicine, but it's also a lot is food. The food that we eat has a lot to do with the fact that we are getting taller. So over the past 4 years, I've been investigating what influences the growth of the body in a very realistic way. So I read a lot of scientific papers on how you get big, how you get taller, how you stay smaller, what influences them, what is dwarfism, what kind of dwarfisms are there. I could talk many hours about just the Incredible Shrinking Man itself, but I just want to take it a little bit from the perspective of food at the moment. So yeah, that's the iconic image. But this is the basic idea. Like if you are, because we all know there's 7 billion people on the planet, and we also know these people are getting taller. Actually, the funny thing is that the Dutch were the smallest people in Europe, together with the Spaniards and the Italians, in the middle of the 19th century. Now, the Spaniards are still not the tallest, but the Dutch are the tallest people in the world now. So we were the smallest just 150 years ago. Now we are the tallest in the world. We have actually grown an average size of 20 centimeters. On average, that's huge. It's a huge increase over a very small amount of time. And another funny thing is that this growth started exactly the same moment when we start to mass produce cheese in the Netherlands. Because cheese actually is a luxury item. You have to put so much milk to make 1 kilo of cheese that before, that was crazy. You wouldn't do it. So only when, how do you call it? Fertilizers and all these kind of things came, so that they had so many cows and they could eat so much and they could produce so much milk that they started to mass produce this cheese. Now, I'm not saying that this is a one-on-one thing, but it's very curious that it starts exactly the same thing. And after reading some scientific papers about it, cheese and dairy products actually do influence growth hormone production. So there is a relationship, somehow, but it's not the entire 20% probably. It could be, something else. So Shaquille O'Neal is now, this guy, he's a basketball player. He's 147 kilos, and this guy is only 82. Now the thing is that we know there's a lot of people, we know they're getting bigger, but what a lot of people don't think about is that when you get bigger, you actually grow proportionally. That means that your weight and how much you need increases quite fast. So you can see that just the increase from like 185 to 2 meters 16, he's actually 2 meters 16, is almost double the weight. So that's quite curious. So if you would just say, okay, let's not become 2 meters 16, because if we continue like this, we will be 2 meters 16 in a century or in a century and a half. We will all be like Shaquille O'Neal. We will all be 150 kilograms, and we all have to feed and transport and wash and clothe that 150 kilograms, which is not a good idea, especially not from the perspective of sustainability. It's just, you need so much more. What if we go the other way? You see that it makes a huge difference. And so the project, The Incredible Shrinking Man, is actually about taking it all the way to 50 centimeters, where we would only be about 2 kilograms. Actually 1.7, but Shaquille O'Neal has a lot of muscles, so he would be 2 kilograms. The average person would be 1.7 kilograms, which is like your normal house cat, it's about this weight. The most interesting thing about this, however, is that if you are that small, you only need about 2 to 5% of the resources that you need right now. So you become that small, you are like 25% of your height, but you are much less of the weight, so you need much less. So let's say 5%. That means a 95% decrease in water use, energy use, food use, oil use, anything. And actually the smallest person alive today is 54.8 centimeters, the guy from Nepal. So we're almost there. So although it's a theoretical endpoint, it's very close to reality, extremely close to reality. Now you can imagine if you would become that small, the incredible abundance that you would shrink into. It would really be a process of shrinking into abundance. Now what we are doing presently, today, is we are growing into scarcity. I mean, our behavior and the way we consume, of course, is the biggest thing in this, because we could live in a much more sustainable way, more love for the planet, more, let's say, appropriation of things that we really need instead of all the things we want. I mean, we can do a lot of these things, but still we are growing towards scarcity because another 2 billion people will come, and et cetera, et cetera. But the other way around, we would really come into a situation of incredible abundance. And, well, abundance is one of these things that interest me, especially related to food. Like this is an image that it visualizes parts of the Bible. It's the grapes of Canaan. It's when Moses sends people to the promised land, and they come back with these huge grapes. And they said, we found the land of milk and honey. So somehow this abundance is promised to us in the Bible. So no wonder, that so many religious people as well, although there's part of religion that is also about fasting and taking less, a huge part of religion is actually this promise of abundance. So we're always it's almost a religious duty to be living like this, to be living large. So I'm trying to connect, let's say, a secular way of taking this religious, somehow, instinct that people may be having, and try to convince them that they should become smaller, because then they can actually experience this. So if you remember the first image when I was with the grapes like that, it kind of relates to this. So a few years ago in Stroom, I wanted to actually experience what such abundance would feel like. And what I did is I cook an ostrich as if it were a chicken. So you can imagine if you are 50 centimeters, a chicken is huge. Eh? It is as big as an ostrich, actually. So if you are standing next to a slaughtered ostrich, it is almost like a dead body. When I saw it for the first time, I got sick. I was like, how can I do such a thing, you know? Because I'm researching through food these other things in society, but still, in the end, I think it was good, because all these things start happening when you have this sort of abundance. People start to really get into it. Everybody wants to cut the meat. It became this crazy social event. It was like almost like going back to the Middle Ages. And this is something that I couldn't have understood, and I also couldn't have given it some sort of place in my investigation if I hadn't done it. So sometimes you have to do these things. But also the other way around. I have had some guinea pig farms, because of course I like the fact that in English it's called guinea pig, a pig. So it could be the pig of the future. Because the size of a guinea pig, if we are 50 centimeters, is about the size of a pig. And in Latin America, and even in Italy during the war, people were eating them and breeding them. Maybe here in Spain as well? No? You prefer the rats. So, yeah. Rabbit, yes, me too. Yeah. So we were breeding with guinea pigs for a while. And doing all kinds of other experiments with small and big, and you know. I mean, the interesting thing is, of course, when things go down, become smaller, it's not just less, but also time increases. Or let's say you have more time because you cook something that's small so quickly that you have, you know, a meal is prepared just like that. It's a flash. So not just the amount changes, but everything changes. Space and time changes. Because if I'm very small and I have to walk to that door is very far away. But for me, that door is not very far away. Actually, this artist, I don't know if you know, this Robert Wilson, he once did this performative walks in a festival in the Netherlands where you had to walk like this, very, very slowly. Just one foot in front of the one. And the funny thing is that because this rule, space increased. Because if you had to walk like this and you were going to take it, that hill that was there, that normally you would walk in 2 minutes, it became like half an hour away. And somehow the distance became, you could physically feel it. And so this shrinking also becomes an exercise in this, trying to understand and to go there in some ways. I just give you some examples of, you know, I mean, food-related research. I mean, this is the one-bean coffee. A regular coffee has about 50 beans. And if you shrink that down to like shrinking man size, you would have like a 1 or 1.5 bean coffee. But let's say a 1-bean coffee, which is interesting because that would, how do you say it? You wouldn't need the water to make the same coffee that we are making now of 1.5 times the Rhine discharge each year. So the water involved in making coffee in the world is like the discharge of the Rhine River into the North Sea in 1.5 years. It's a huge river, so that's a lot of water. So that's of course the water that's put on the land. The water is not the water that's prepared in the final thing, but you know. So it would almost you wouldn't need that kind of water. So just to give a kind of an idea. But physically also properties like this is a drop of soup, a drop of tomato soup. And actually we'll be serving it next month in a restaurant. Because of course physical properties will also, you will kind of shrink towards them. And so a drop would become something completely different. Like a drop for an ant, they can actually drown in a drop of water, right? We know this. Insects can drown in a drop of water. For us, we were 50 centimeters. For us, it wouldn't be like that. But we would have a different relationship. I'm quite curious about that. So food serves to show me these things. Well, that's my zebrafish aquarium. I'm genetically, let's say, epigenetically manipulating zebrafish to know what influences their growth. And so some hormones, like somatostatin, if you take it, you stay small. And so I have some fish, and they are breeding them commercially somehow in Hong Kong, that have this hormone inside of them. So if you would eat this fish as a child, you would actually stay small. And the funny thing is, if you would stay small, the fish would actually be quite big. So it would be a fish farm, and as well as a medicine to stay small. So just these kind of... Anyway. So let's say I'm becoming more, I'm slowly making steps towards reality here. Like first it was really kind of like a fairy tale, and slowly it starts to, hey, we can actually maybe do this. If we get bigger and we think that's so normal, while it's not, because it's a cultural thing, you know, we are feeding ourselves with hormones and all this kind of stuff. Why can't we become smaller? If it's a cultural thing anyway, we can decide it, right? Yeah, this was a celebration for lactose intolerance because, like I said before, dairy products, they stimulate your growth. And now, since the milk scandal in China, people in China didn't want to have their own milk anymore. They were not drinking so much milk because actually 90% of the Chinese population is lactose intolerant. But then they had this milk scandal and they drank even less. But what happened was it opened the door for American milk companies and European milk companies, but not just for their products, especially for their marketing, which is extremely efficient marketing. So now American and European companies that now have some power in China, they are pushing their product like crazy. And that means that 1.3 billion Chinese feel some sort of pressure because they all want to be tall, also kind of cultural confusion in my opinion. They are trying to drink milk, making themselves sick, you know. So what I wanted to do is I actually want to turn it around and say, no, your identity is about being lactose intolerant. Let's celebrate it. Let's be happy that you are not drinking milk, and let's be happy that you are staying a little bit smaller because of that. So it was more like an activistic thing. It was a celebration, but it looked like a demonstration, which was also why in the end it was boycotted by the Chinese government, because they looked at it and they said, no, you cannot do this. Then I started to make landscape paintings in which I was writing these messages, and still a lot of people were kind of getting this message. But it was nice to do, and everybody understood it in China. Everybody immediately got it, because most of them are actually lactose intolerant. So I had like 1,000 discussions with them about it.
Like everybody's what they want, and they don't have milk, they don't have milk, actually, and they don't have beef. Let's put a picture of it.
No beef?
In Taiwan, there are 100 of McDonald's, 100 of Starbucks with the cafe latte. Absolutely.
Yeah, if they don't put it in this way, they will find another way. The product will always at some point enter the market. If you are not aware, and if you in a way are unable to make a choice because you're uneducated about it. And the last project within this Shrinking Man is, my last project is about, well, maybe not my last one, but until now, I'm now making an elixir using things like loofah, duck cress, spinach. So these vegetables all have phytohormones in them that are mimicking the same substance that is in my fish, somatostatin. So that's a growth. It stops growth. It stops growth hormone from being produced. Actually, it's the same why a bonsai, for instance, stays small. It is when a bonsai gets a signal from its roots that there is very little food and very little water, it starts to make a hormone. It's actually kind of a stress hormone, and that keeps everything small. So it's not directly because it doesn't have water and food, it's indirectly because it doesn't have water and food. It's actually the growth hormone itself that keeps the bonsai small. And this same phytohormones are also in some vegetables. So I'm now doing an investigation with a herb specialist on trying to find different vegetables that have this phytohormones inside of them. And I made this elixir. I actually served it to the Minister of Culture of the Netherlands just a few weeks ago, and she drank it after being pressured a lot by the crowd that the minister always walks around. They all just drank it, but she didn't want it, and then she took it anyway. But what this is about is also that I want to present this to parents, and I would like to say to them, okay, you can take this, you can give this to your child. If you give this to your child, it will stay smaller. But as a result of this, it will have a lot less chance of cancer, and it will die a lot older, probably. So you have the choice between a healthy life and small, or a less healthy life, let's say. I'm not saying not a healthy life, a less healthy life and taller. Because there are all kinds of connections between, like every centimeter above 150, I was talking to you, to Sarah, like every centimeter above 153 takes about 6 months of your average life expectancy. So my life expectancy is more than 20 years less than Sarah's here. That's because she's 153. And this is a proven fact. This is not something I'm making up. You can, I mean, it's just hundreds of thousands of people. They've checked height and when they die, and it's always like that. The graphs don't lie about that. So it's an interesting situation. There's one boy in the Netherlands, his name is Tom Watkins, and his mother is I told you, she's a very fanatical raw food person. So she feeds her son only raw food. And yes, he's staying a little bit smaller than the boys that he's playing with. So she went on national TV because actually a child, whatever this kind of, they threatened to take the child away from her because they felt that she was actually torturing or something, her boy, by not feeding him the normal food, but just feeding him raw food. And so she went on national TV. The journalists, they sacrificed her. They sacrificed her. They said, how dare you experiment with your child? How dare you? You know, and basically they were so angry because the boy was maybe 6 to 12 centimeters smaller than his peers because of this raw food. And then her answer was the best answer I can imagine. It was she said, how can you say I'm experimenting with my child? You know, parents are giving their children more fat, more sugar, more additives than ever before in history. Never have people given their children this kind of stuff ever in the history of man. And you are accusing me of experimenting? I just want to feed my child healthy food. So that was a good answer. And I think in the end, the child was not taken away from the mother. But it just shows you how food can open up this kind of, I mean, talking about food as a research tool, here food really became a lens to look at a situation, to look at, how do you say it, when you think about something in a certain way, you cannot, you know, when you think just like this. So society thinks in these very strong patterns, and if you are different, you're immediately sacrificed, also in a food way. And that, of course, says more about society than it says about this mother. That's interesting for me. So this was just last week. It doesn't involve a lot of food because it was actually a starvation experiment. So for 1 week we didn't eat, and it kind of fits into my interest in how much I need instead of how much I want or how much I desire. I just want to know what is my bottom line. It seems to be a good piece of knowledge to have these days. Again, in relation to how we are treating the planet at the moment, but also just as a personal piece of knowledge. How many of us actually know how we deal with hunger? All of us know how we deal with abundance. That's not a problem. We all have experienced abundance all the time. But we don't know hunger. So if you want to have a modest lifestyle, how do you calibrate what is modest between a situation of abundance and a situation that you've never experienced? How do you find the middle between something you know and something you don't know? So for me it was trying to also know what it meant to be hungry. I mean, slightly hungry. I didn't starve myself for many years, like some people, unfortunately, have to starve for many, many years. But I think the way we are dealing with food and the way we are designing the food world and the distribution of food and all these kind of things, basically they are the result of our fear for hunger and our desire to keep our abundance, because we are keeping everything, you know, we're trying to make it work for us, not for the planet. And I was trying to connect my personal experience of hunger to these bigger kind of questions about how does fear of hunger influence design. And this is just starting this investigation, so I'll just show you a few pictures of what we're trying to do here. I mean, this is one of these, I mean, that's just some of the reasons why I starved myself, but I invited people to come starve for all kinds of purposes, because people are willing to starve themselves for all sorts of ideals. Sometimes it's religious, could be political activism, it could be because of health or because of beauty. I mean, there's all these reasons for starving yourself. Curiosity, maybe. Research, in my case, is the biggest one, kind of encompassing everything. Starve yourself for art. It's known that artists sometimes starve themselves because they want to be focused and they want to have a clear mind, so they fast for a few days. Famous museum director in the Netherlands, always 3 days before he would do a studio visit, he wouldn't eat, so that when he came to the studio, he was focused and concentrated for the work and not tired from food or from other processes going on. So interesting, people have all these reasons. So I invited people to say, come, for whatever reason you have to starve yourself, even if you're anorexic or whatever, come, do it, and we will be there. We will share a week and we will talk about hunger and we'll talk about our experiences and see what comes out. So I start to make these kind of paintings, for instance, because we all found ways to sublimate our fear or our hunger. We sublimate them in all kinds of ways. So for instance, I was looking at these monster agricultural machines. Like, why do they look like monsters? Is it because of the fear? Is it kind of like, does a farmer these days feel like a soldier fighting hunger? You know, I don't know. And the cornucopia, of course, a nice symbol of abundance, but an empty cornucopia, not such a nice symbol maybe. Another girl who was there, Manon van Hoekel, she made this, I don't know if you can see it, a ravioli pillow. So she was thinking about food. She made huge food, like she made this kind of jamon blankets and this very, very nice ravioli pillow on which she slept. And then just an image for you, David. This is the aquaponics at Mediamatic. So at the end of the starvation experiment, we start to eat again. And it was at Mediamatic, and they have this already for many, many years. They're experimenting with aquaponics and trying to make them better, you know, because it takes a lot of expertise somehow to really do it well. And so we were eating their food, and it was really good. And in the bottom part of the aquaponics are these catfish, also very, very nice. And so that basically brings us to this moment, right, where we are doing a street food lab. So I guess we wanted to, I don't know, do something that reflects contemporary needs and urgencies. I mean, we all have a sense that this street food is more than just a nice thing on the street that we can have some fun with. And the discussions and the debates that have been going on, it turns out that you cannot really do street food in Madrid, which is, for many people here, quite an amazing piece of information, you know, because somehow it disallows you, or it disallows many people, the possibility to make something of life. Because in any culture, Asia, Africa, I mean, the first thing you do if you don't have a possibility to make a living in a factory or in a shop is you just take a pen and you take a stove and you prepare some food and you try to sell it. It's one of these things that if the going gets tough, the openness to do this is very, very important. And somehow here in Madrid, it's impossible, but also, I think, it is necessary. Because look, we are in a situation, I think Spain is more in this situation than some countries, but then you are just ahead and others are coming, because it's never going to be like it was before. We're not going to go back to the situation before 2008, never. You know, we have to come up with new ideas and new scenarios. And so this street food becomes a bit like a symbol. And so the main issue, in a way, becomes, so how do you enter the loophole? Where are the loopholes? How can we do it anyway? Because if we feel it's necessary and it's important, so how do we do it? So how do we occupy this space? How do we appropriate this public space for this thing? It's a very bad image, but anyway, I like it. It's this guys who have this car. So we're talking about maybe taking the parking spaces and camouflaging as a car, but secretly making it into street food things. So what strategies do we need, you know? Yes, it's a nice photo. I like it. It's like a dance. It's like a choreography. And the issues that I just mentioned, I think they are somehow coming up in what we are doing downstairs now. And Sunday morning we will present it. What would happen if the kitchen was not a kitchen, but what if it would be kind of performative architecture? If we would say, no, it's not a kitchen. No, we're not, you know, we're just, we are performing a kitchen. Or what would happen if we would say, no, it's not food, it's actually a pamphlet. It's not food, we are making pamphlets, you know. This is just a tryout, but we're going to write on top of these chapatis. And so, yeah, those are some of the final ideas. And I think that let's say, food as a way to address really bigger issues that are going on now in society is a very, very strong medium, a very strong instrument. And I hope, well, I know some of you will be here Sunday, because basically the audience is all the people that are participating. So the question is basically, how can we retake these streets and use the production and the distribution and the preparation and the consumption of food to do so? You know, how are we going to do that? So that's the challenge that we find in the street food lab, I think. And it's a challenge that I feel very much related to. And so basically that's what I wanted to say. We can have a discussion about the project that I presented. Maybe there are some questions. I think we have like 15 minutes. So I leave it for now, I think. Yeah, that's it. So thank you.
Any questions, please? Question? Yes, a question about, it's about the hungry thing, because I think in Spain, the problem is it's not genetical. The problem is that it's more than that. It's a family thing, because the 20th century in Spain was so horrible about food, about hunger. It's the Civil War, and after the war, they fix it in. They produce in the mind of a whole generation this fear about hunger. It's very funny because they also produce a wonderful food, like, for example, it's not produced by things like croquetas, things like that. They are not invented in the hungry times, but it's a little bit like that. It's the croqueta, the meatball, or the balls. They pretend to be something like a stick. It's like the dream to have a stick, but you don't have it. You only have flour and a little bit of fish, or a little bit of chicken. You understand? This kind of wonderful idea. But as I hear, to be hungry is like a shy. You understand? It's like absolutely impossible. And my parents, my grandmothers, they always said with food. And I think we are a generation of fat people, because we eat a lot, we eat too much. Because our parents, I think they are not balanced. You understand? They are not balanced. We come from, and then I think it's quite complicated. Maybe the next generation, they understand very well this. This is a question of junk food. It's a question of here is forbidden to waste food, because in this city the people eat the cat, eat the rats, everything during the war and after. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying is that if you are afraid, you cannot do anything about it. But I don't agree. I think you can. I mean, at least to be aware that your actions are the result more of fear than of the hunger itself. Because, like Franz Kafka also says this, fasting or not eating is very easy if it's not for such a long time. It's a very easy thing to do. Now, for us, I mean, of course, you can say, yeah, but you're not hungry, you're not in Africa or whatever, Okay, but that doesn't disallow me the right to experience hunger under my own terms and to think about it and to at least be aware that fear of hunger is much more problematic than hunger itself in the West, where we have enough and where you can choose to moderate yourself, let's say. Fast maybe a few days in the week or less. But if you are afraid of hunger and you are not aware of it, then you will never do this. You will never look for this moderation. You will always stuff yourself. So I think it is also about this, about the less harsh realities. I'm not talking about in a civil war. I'm not talking about in some areas of Africa where it's very hard. These are very extreme conditions. But if every time I bring up the word hunger, I immediately have to defend Africa or situations in the war, then I can never have a natural, normal relationship with hunger, which is just a physical thing of your body saying, I want some food. It's nothing more. But when I say hunger to you, there's the civil war. That's the thing, is that you cannot think about hunger as a neutral thing. You are thinking about hunger immediately in a historical context, and you act accordingly. So when you are designing your world, maybe not you personally, but when we are as humanity designing our world, this subconscious fear is creating monsters, like that one monster that we just saw in the painting. That this is destroying basically our planet. So our fear is destroying our planet, because we are throwing away 30 to 40% of our food just because of fear. Because if we would be rational about it, we wouldn't do that. So it's how do we deal with it? And of course, it's very difficult. But if you say it's impossible, then that's the end of everything. And then we might as well just stop having this kind of projects, because then there's a lot of things that are impossible, maybe.
I was thinking about this. Just was talking about this project that we did many years ago. It's about how to steal, and why this how to learn to steal it. The project is called Yo Mango. It was funny because they're always about, because we make many workshops, and we teach the people what is the alarms, what is who to steal in shops and whatever. The thing is, it's very funny because the first thing is people are super stressed because they are fear to the police and everything. But after that, it was very funny because when you discover it's so easy to steal in shops and nothing's happened, the thing is, finally, you don't need to steal because you understand. If you go, for example, to to a new city, and you say, "Ah, sorry, I forget my umbrella." Okay, you know you can have it. You don't need money for the things, and in a moment you don't need to steal anymore because you don't need things because do you understand very well? You are not fear about the the emotion of the buy things, have money, this kind of thing. I think it's something like that. No? We're talking about food. No? Sorry.
You want to?
Sorry.
I was going to mention something about your hunger project. I think the starvation project, what you were saying about, the fear of hunger and just awareness of how your body feels when you're hungry and how your body feels when it's full and just needing things. All of these sorts of subjects are really interesting and very fashionable topics at the moment in England. It's curious to me that a lot of people I know who are not into kind of fads or food or
Fast food.
no, not even fashionable subjects or fast food or any of that sort of, just neutral people are now starting to do that. Is it called 5.2 diet?
Yeah.
It's such a big thing.
Yeah.
It
It's
seems
the
that
BBC
most.
guy.
Yeah, it seems
Even
like
in the Netherlands, they're starting to do it now. I mean,
Okay.
but that's, it's a start.
It's the start. So it's really interesting to me that actually it's my friends' parents who are in their 60s, 70s who are doing this because they're doing it generally for health reasons and generally it's just another way off their mind. They know what it's like to be hungry as well. They don't fear it and it's a relief not to have to think about cooking for people, shopping for people for 2 days of the week, and resting in the knowledge that is actually good for your body. And then also looking forward to the next day that you're going to have a good meal. So in a sense, it's all the things that you're talking about. You lose that fear of, crikey, I need to get all this food and poverty and all of that sort of thing. And you gain. It's like a win-win situation. It's better for your health. You're using less fuel, you're using less of your time, all of this, and you can relax knowing it's good for you. So I don't know, I think that's quite nice, yeah. So, and it's interesting because all of those topics, as you said, like lots of people for religious reasons have always kind of observed things like fasting, like even Lent, a lot of these things, they're done for religious purposes, but essentially it grounds people. It makes them realize, actually, I'm pretty lucky. I can eat at the end of this fasting, and fasting itself isn't terrifying, and that kind of thing. So, I don't know, all of those human kind of elements come out when you don't eat for a while. And I think, it's interesting. Anyway, commendations. Does anyone else like to speak?
Nice observation. Anything else?
Some questions?
Or should we just...
Yes, I have a final question. Only one more. Is if finally you plan to reduce the size of the people we come, I was afraid of one thing. We also reduce the size of the pets at home, because I'm super scared of my cat, and to have a big cat maybe kill me, So.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a perfect illustration of not doing something because of fear. It's funny because this is the first thing that I think so many people, they immediately think of cats and rats, and I'm more afraid of insects myself. But of course there will be some challenges, but you always have to remember that we are the cruelest animals ourselves, and we will find a way. I found this little butterfly on the floor. I was wondering how big it would be if I was 50 centimeters. But anyway, maybe I can
thank
use the wings to fly.
Thank you, Arne, and please come back to work.
Okay.